Hi, this is Irina Makova, VP of AI Engineering and Data Analytics for Tech and Product at Salesforce, and you are listening to Experiencing Data with Brian T. O'Neill.
You're now experiencing data with Brian O'Neill. Experiencing Data explores how product managers, analytics leaders, data scientists, and executives are looking at design and user experience as a way to make their custom enterprise data products and analytics applications more useful, usable, and valuable. And now, here's your host, the founder and principal of Designing for Analytics, Brian O'Neill.
Welcome back to Experiencing Data. This is Brian T. O'Neill. Today I have my friend Irina Makova on the line from Salesforce. How are you? I'm glad we're doing this finally. This is exciting.
I am glad we're doing this.
So you are VP of AI Engineering and Data and Analytics for the Tech and Product Group at Salesforce, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What the heck does that mean? Let's start there.
So glad you asked. So I think I have one of the most fun roles in data analytics out there. I actually run two separate teams, and I love that I run both of them because I think there's a lot of cohesion in the AI age. But one of them is a classic data analytics team supporting our tech and product organization here at Salesforce. So Salesforce has a lot of software that we're building. We have thousands of features, hundreds of SKUs, all of that needs product analytics. So that's essentially what my team does. So we own product data within Salesforce, we help produce it, we help curate it, and then we also do standard product analytics on it. Like how do you make it useful for go-to-market? How do you drive less attrition with it? And then how, of course, you use it to build better products. So that's half of my team. The other half is a more recent development. It's our internal AI engineering team for data analytics organization. So the job of that team is to take us to the next level of what data analytics can be for the company with AI. So we already have done a lot of work in that space before the recent explosion with foundational models by focusing on the classic ML. So the quantitative predictive models, attrition prediction, forecasting, things like that. So I was running an ML applications team between 2020 and 2023, and we were building a lot of forecasting apps, attrition, etc. for Salesforce. So that team recently evolved into a bigger charter that now uses AI to completely reimagine the way we do analytical experiences at Salesforce. So now, instead of just using classic ML, we are now experimenting with building conversational access to analytics and insights using AI right in the flow of work. So you can imagine a Slack application, Salesforce owns Slack, my favorite collaboration tool, where instead of talking to a human analyst, you can talk to an AI that sits right there in the Slack channel. And this AI can answer some of your analytics questions like, hey, I don't understand. Why is my account adoption going down? Can you help me? What are the drivers of that? So that's what my AI engineering team is doing. And having both is an amazing adventure because I can see both the business needs, the questions that business still is asking and the dashboards that they still want, and then the future of how those business needs can be addressed as we build our AI muscle.
Got it. So most of the work is your users are other Salesforce employees. So this is primarily internal work across both.
Yes, thank you. Should have said that. So I'm part of the chief data officer organization, okay. And our customers are internal. We work closer and closer with the producers of the data for the external customers just because those threads are merging. But our main focus is internal needs of our employees, yes.
So I'm curious how, like, you guys were dabbling with or fully invested or somewhere in between with applying, the product operating model or data product management as a competency in the org. And we'll get into that in a second, or maybe we'll get into it right now when I ask this. But who's deciding what types of AI work your team is doing? Because, if you're leading AI, it's a solution method. We're leading with a solution method. So I'm just curious, like, who decides that this should get love right now, that this problem should get love versus that one? Is there a product counterpart to you, or is that all the AI engineering people are the ones that decide and prioritize requests for help, whatever that looks like? Talk to me about that.
That is a fantastic question. So we are still a product organization, and our product managers, and I'm in my head, I'm putting that in parentheses right now because I think there's a lot to double click on the role of product management and data. But our product managers sit in the business facing functions. So the decisions on what to build are ultimately done by my data analytics team supporting tech and product for tech and product. And similarly, I have peers, VPs who similarly have data analytics for example, for customer success and data analytics for sales. And those are the folks that decide what to build. AI engineering function is essentially an engineering technical implementation partner. So under the hood, folks in AI engineering are engineering managers working directly with the business function. So I have somebody who supports me in my own role in my other head, supporting data analytics product managers for tech and product. And then I also have folks doing AI engineering for example, for customer success and sales folks, sales data product managers. The difference is that function for us is centralized. And the reason we did that is to elevate the role of engineering versus the role of product, to make sure that engineering managers for AI engineering have enough support there, enough visibility in organization, enough seniority. For that, we brought them together and centralize them so they can enjoy that power and visibility. And that has been key because this function needs to transform quickly, which requires senior leaders with senior access to be able to make that happen.
Was there a before time, or this organization is new and it has always been where it is now? Because it sounded like it changed.
Let me share the full timeline of our adventures in org design for data at Salesforce. So we used to be semi-centralized, where tech and product had a data analytics and AI function. And then sales had data analytics and AI function. Success had data analytics and AI function. Marketing had, etc. So you get my drift. And we were brought together about 2.5 years ago for the first time under the very first chief data analytics officer. So at that point, all teams came together and we decided to keep the business orientation intact outside of the ML AI engineering function, because it felt like ML AI engineering folks, there were so few of them, and they were so scattered across all the different functions that it was hard for them to keep up with everything that was. They built everything that was asked of them, keep up with all of the AI developments, understand where the puck is going with analytics becoming part of software, etc. So we centralized them. And centralizing them allowed us to have enough scale to essentially bring in some senior leaders to drive that team. Yeah, so that's essentially the only team that's centralized. The rest is still within business-facing pillars.
Got it. So like in the sales department, did you say there's a data product manager in the sales department that would be your business sponsor for an AI project that needs engineering support?
Exactly. Yeah. And we run Agile where the team is defined across the physical organizational teams. So the folks on my engineering team, they would be part of Scrum team in our Scrum management tool, reporting to the PM who drives that on the business facing side. Yeah.
How is that working? The Scrum, I've heard a lot of data science people talk to me that you really can't, especially with AI stuff and model development, like this whole idea of doing iterative 2-week development cycles is not like, you're not really going to have a small version of a finished thing in 2 weeks. Like you could still be in experimentation just to see, can we even build a model that will do anything, give any lift or any predictive power, whatever it may be. Do you disagree with that? Are you finding that you guys can actually develop potentially shippable software on a whatever your cadence looks like?
It is a very complex question I have a lot of opinion on. I completely agree with the sentiment that the linearity of, oh, hey, I put in some effort, I got out some output, is gone. And I think the entire software development industry, including us data folks, is struggling with it. Because in the classical paradigm, we are used to doing a little bit of work, getting a little bit of value back, and then repeating that until the end of time. That predictability being disrupted is not new. ML has already showed us that that was the case. Even when I was running the ML team, working with classic models like forecasting, for example, we had that problem. You don't really know how the experiment will turn out, and if actually with existing data, you actually can achieve that accuracy of the forecast that you need to achieve for this to be useful to your users. So I think what we're experiencing right now in the industry is the 100x that, because AI is even less predictable than ML has ever been. I compare that to silk versus linen. I don't know if you ever heard that metaphor, but that's essentially like when you, I used to make all my clothes because I grew up in the 90s in Soviet Union. So we made everything. So with linen, you can just like, as much effort as you put in, you get it back. You get the result back. With silk, you can put a lot of effort and it's still going to look bad. So I think that's what we're experiencing. And data people are not alone. I think all software engineers right now who are trying to build with AI are struggling with the same thing. So you can put a lot of effort, a lot of sprints, a lot of agile stories, still get nothing back. So it's real. However, I think that keeping predictability in this shifting landscape is even more important. It's just harder. And it's really on the PMs and on the engineering managers to try to figure out how do you break down the complexity of developing a model, an AI solution that works into something that can be measurable on the way, right? So it's just much harder to form the sprints, but we must. And it really comes down to being very intentional and very AI fluent about your experimentation strategy, about why are you trying the things you're trying, what are you expecting to see, what kind of hypothesis are you testing, what have worked for other teams, doing a lot of research, etc. So I think it's very real. We shouldn't be surprised, because look at what pre-training engineers go through. My brother is a pre-training engineer at DeepMind working on long context. So he has to write a strategy for every single run of the model. It has to be very intentional, because otherwise they will lose millions of dollars. So it's kind of like that with anything we build with AI these days. It just takes much more intention, much more strategy. And that brings me back to the importance of product management, because that's exactly what product management has always been for, and it has never been more important than right now.
And so tell me about your product management colleagues then that are requesting, AI solutions here. Are they mostly coming out of data roles and have upskilled into product managers, or are they software PMs that are upskilling into data? Like, what do they look like, and how are they working with your teams? Are they knowledgeable enough to understand what they're asking for? Particularly if you guys are really a delivery team underneath them, well, sort of underneath them, but.
Yeah, we really have a chain of product managers, and it's how it works today. And I think data teams can probably relate. I don't love it, but I don't completely see the way around it. But essentially, there is usually a product manager in the business. So for example, we recently released an analytical app for our consumption sellers to quote faster. So selling a consumption product that has a lot of difficult features is very, very difficult. As a seller, you need to understand not only which of those features you're charging for customers will use, but you also have to forecast how much of these features customers would need in a quarter to correctly assess how much to sell. And if you assess incorrectly, you either gonna under-generate revenue and not get your bonus, or you're gonna oversell to the customer, and then customer is sitting there with all of this unutilized capacity, and they're very sad. So quoting correctly on the consumption product is very difficult. And we used to have consumption sellers go to 5 different dashboards that were the most beautiful dashboards you have ever seen, but they had a lot of numbers in them. And it was very difficult if you're a consumption seller. You're here to sell. You're here not to stare at 5 dashboards. So we just deployed an app in essentially Slack that where you can just ask what kind of quote this customer needs, and this app in the background looks at those exact same 5 dashboards. There's no new data, same exact 5 dashboards. There's just a semantic layer and a knowledge graph on top that helps us translate that to what a human analyst would say. So that's enough. That the example of an app we're building. So to build this app, we had to both work with the product manager in the business who understood that consumption seller process. And I had a product manager on my side who understood the data science of it. She understood AI enough, and she understood the data really, really, really well because her team built those 5 dashboards before. So they worked as a team. So we actually had a third product manager in there. There was a product manager of the actual internal technology where that was all deployed, because we have a separate business technology team that runs our Slack instance. You have to work with them as well. So now we have a third in our party. But that's usually how it works, yeah.
So that second PM is part of AI engineering?
She's part of my business aligned pillar. So it's part of the first team I was describing, data and analytics for tech and product.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you have a several of those or a handful of those that often pair with the AI engineering team? Exactly,
yeah. This is the PM leader to the AI engineering manager, yes.
I see. So I'm curious then, is the value piece and the outcomes and benefits part, is that really on the shoulders of the PM to get right? And it's kind of your that's not your team's responsibility. Like if you're building the wrong thing, for example, or, let's say the consumption product, like, yeah, I can ask a question, but now I want to reverse engineer the answer that I got because I don't know how you came up with it because I don't have access to the data. So now they're like kind of questioning like how much to sell. And then maybe they stop using, I'm just making this up, but now you can have like a trust. And you literally said this, by the way, I'm quoting you, this is LinkedIn post, AI adoption moves at the speed of user trust. I actually put this in a talk I gave a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta.
Oh, I love it.
I thought this was a great quote. Let's talk about that actually, because that's really the heart of the question here is like, how do you get through the trust barrier and the adoption barrier? Is that on the AI engineering team or is it on the product management team? Like, how do you think about that? Like, are people going to use this? Are they going to trust it? Are they ready for this?
Yeah, that is 1000% on the product management team. And so I definitely would not ask my engineering manager to think about that, because if there is one clarity that product model gave me is that there needs to be this dialogue and creative tension between technology and what we can build, and then the value of it, which is what we must build. And it is very important to separate the two because all the bad things always happen if only one is present. So that I'm completely clear that it should be on the product side. We, however, have a lot of PMs, just like I mentioned, and I think a lot of folks are experiencing that. So my only, there is a fragmented ownership, right? Like which PM in the system that I described owns the final outcome that users actually are loving this app and they're actually getting value out of it? Is it the PM on the business side who understands the consumption seller process? Is it PM on my side who, in the data analytics organization, who understands AI? Is it the PM on that owns our entire Slack instance? Which one is it? It's a difficult question. I think the only solution I see right now is culture, really. So it's very important that all three of those folks have enough of a relationship and enough of a focus on the shared vision of making users successful to just go an extra mile, color outside of their box, and do it with care and for their peers and their responsibility as well. I really have not found any other way to solve this. And it's difficult because each of these PMs have their own boss, right? And that boss decides what their incentives are, etc. So it's really hard to coordinate. But culture really is where it all either works or breaks apart.
Do you have this challenge of like, especially like internal data product teams particularly, it's like the struggle to quantify the value of the work that we do. because it's not direct revenue generating. Usually it's like, well, we're improving the forecast so that they know how much to sell to the whatever. It's like, well, how much of that is, can you thank the Slack bot that we made? Like, how much do we credit that, and then you need a counterfactual, like, well, we didn't run the counterfactual to know what it would have been. So does that create little value fiefdoms where the 3 PMs all kind of want to like take some credit, or like, hey, I'm sure there's some politics here, but are you shielded from that because you're more on the engineering side?
Definitely not shielded. Yeah, I think being a cost center, is in this day and age is a difficult life. Yeah, I want to say that ROI of analytics has always been a problem.
Yeah,
I don't even know like how our function is alive even, because I've been in analytics for 12 years, and every time it's so hard to justify what we do, that every time there is a bust in the business cycle, analytics people are the first ones that the business turns around and are like, do we need this many analysts? What you guys are even doing? So it is definitely a tough place to be. I completely relate. I do think, though, that it's about to change. And one of the first tactical reasons on why is this change in nature of analytics products from being outside of the flow of work to being in the flow of work. So fundamentally, in my example of the going from 5 dashboards to a Slack app, I had no idea what people did with my 5 dashboards. I saw the visits to them. I maybe even would see some kind of filters interacted with if I really double down my instrumentation, but that is it, right? I don't know what they're doing with these dashboards. Whereas now, I'm in the flow of their actual button clicks and operating systems where they're creating those quotes. So first of all, I can see whether the actual quotes were created as a result of my conversation. I can actually trace the outcome to the quotes being created. I can see if they create faster, right? We can find some kind of counterfactual from before of how long it took to create the quote because they were looking at the dashboard. But now I actually can see how fast they create them. And then the best of it all, when they talk to an AI tool, you can finally see their intent. I feel like we have always dreamt as data product managers to just know what on earth do users even want out of our dashboards, right? Like, what is the question that you're coming to the dashboard to? If I only knew, I would give you the perfect chart right there, but I don't know, right? I'm trying to accommodate all of the questions in your universe. And now you know. You actually can understand what is that they're usually looking for. So I think that is a gold mine for data product managers that we're just scratching the surface on. So yeah, I think we will be able to prove the value of data analytics and insights in a dramatically more quantified and powerful way than we have ever been. And I think some of the metrics that customer success teams are using, where they're essentially switching from the human support center to the bot support center, like for example, deflection rate, how many of your queries went to a bot instead of a human being and how many of them were successfully answered. We can use those metrics now. And that's something that we have never been able to do before. But now you can see how many of those queries actually got closed without a human. So yes, it's been tough. It's still tough, but I really think that there's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Do you find that your team is being asked to do AI appropriate AI work as opposed to like, this sounds like someone just trying to use this new screwdriver they got because they want to use the screwdriver, but it's not the right solution for that? Like, or do you tend to have an educated business or educated DPM that's sending I wouldn't call it an order down, but the requirement, so to speak? Do you tend to get fairly mature asks that are AI appropriate and this type of thing? Or are you guys having to like have that conversation about, is this really the right way to do this? And maybe we start with a different method here. Cause I'm just hearing so much. It's just like, everyone's like trying to use this stuff. And I think it's great to run experiments and to see what is possible, the art of the possible. And some of that stuff has really changed now about what can we do now. But it's also, you don't want to just like try to use it everywhere, wherever you can. It's not always appropriate. If you have a really like predictable workflow, then code it as such and get rid of all the probability chances that it's going to do something stupid. Like you could literally do damage with it. Why would you open yourself up to that unnecessarily? So I'm just kind of curious if they tend to be mature asks, so to speak, that come down, or how do you navigate that?
I think just like everyone, we went through a AI agent craze. Build me an agent for everything. We definitely had crazy November, December, January, I want to say, this past year, when it was a perfect storm of enough folks in the company finally getting the fact that AI is cool and they want to try it, and then the tools to build AI internally finally becoming available. So we rolled out our own version, deployment of Agentforce, and that did not end well, because everyone was like, "I'm going to build an agent now, awesome!" And it was just like the havoc ensued. So majority of those didn't work, and lots of time was wasted on this experimentation. So completely agree. Yeah, I think it was a necessary.
What did it work?
ROI is the biggest one. I think understanding, just like you said, for what kind of use cases agent is appropriate, and if whether there's a positive ROI is the biggest one, because the cost of building it should be not prohibitive, because it's actually expensive to build an AI app that works. It's very cheap to create a prototype that sort of works. Very expensive to build it right, with the right accuracy, right reliability, the security, etc. So I think that part we didn't get. And then the return on investment side either. I think there was a lot of agents that were launched that would serve, I don't know, like 100 users, maybe. Is it really worth it? The time saved for those 100 users? Is it worth the investment into actually building this thing really well? So ROI was the biggest one. The maturity of building practices as well. I think AI application, just like we said earlier, is harder to build than software. And it's deceptively feels like it's easy, because there's all of this noise about the one-man unicorn startups and like all of this like vibe coding and all of that, just build your AI app. But it's actually, if you really look at the process of building, it is harder, because the architectural choices are much harder. Like, can you get away without using RAG? Can you get away without some kind of post-training and complex processing and retrials and reasoning? Or do you need all these things? What shape do your data have to be? And there's a lot of conversations about metadata right now, and emerging conversations about metadata needing to be a graph or ontology. It sounds awesome, but it's very expensive. So do you need all these things? So you really got to understand whether, like, the engineering choices, how to build something. And I think there's a lot of education involved. So we just, it's just so it's like a siren call. We all heard it. We ran. We ended up on the rocks, and now we're figuring out what to do. And I think the answer to the next step is really snap back to trust. Exactly what we touched on a little bit earlier, is that trust was not top of mind in the first gold rush of building these apps, but now it should be. And I think these apps can be trusted. It's just we need to both lead users to trusting them through incrementally more and more autonomy. And we also have to invest into trust actually being there from the product and engineering side.
Yeah, I was curious, what made you say that quote, AI adoption moves at the speed of user trust? Like, what were you reacting to there?
Yeah, I have a discussion about that with a lot of my friends. We sometimes think of AI apps out there as categories. Some of them are conversational bots. Some of them are autonomous agents that do not require user to get involved. And we think of this category sometimes as completely different things that are maybe less mature, more mature. So conversational bot is something that we started with, but it's actually not great ultimately, and we should go to the autonomous agents. So my strong feeling is that they're not separate. They're just stages in evolution of trust for the technology. Because just like it's like with any automation, before a user will rely on automation, they will first double check that it works. Like, even with dashboards, right? So any ML model I have ever deployed before AI, I always had some analysts sit down and do back of the envelope forecast of the revenue and then compare that number to my ML model. And if they're in the ballpark, that maybe after 10 times of doing that, they will stop doing their little back on the envelope calculation, just start trusting the model.
Right.
Your career is on the line. You're not just going to trust the random number that AI app just randomly is giving you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because that's your livelihood. So I think that just like with classic ML, just like with dashboards, there is this very intricate job of building that trust with the user. And it means that every AI deployment, in my opinion, have to start with the conversational interface. You have to make AI a helper to the user, and you have to make it so verbose and so open that user can build trust in that helper. Just like, for example, like when you hire an intern, right? You always check what this intern does, and this intern shows the work, and they come in with all of the details, and then maybe eventually you will start delegating more and more tasks, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I think of what the conversational AI assistant should be. They should be very helpful, very open, show their work, exactly the lineage to where the numbers came from, give the name of a human data scientist that can help if this is for some reason looking fishy. And that will continue until the user is comfortable. And at that point, user will probably just require them first to be less verbose, but still require them to check in with the user. And then it will be months until the user doesn't even want to check in because they trust this thing so much. And that would be the moment when you're ready for an autonomous AI, but not until then. Until then, you really have to show the work and let this assistant grow as the user see fit.
Do your product counterparts then, do they leverage any user experience talent or human factors people or anything? And because this is very much in the domain of design about understanding trust and what types of questions are they asking and what level of verbosity should we get back to them, and what kind of evidence is the consumption seller how much evidence do they need, what kind of evidence do they want to get back? These are all like design questions to me, and I'm just curious, do you have talent that's part of that, or is the product manager expected to define all that themselves and then pass that to you as requirements? Or
that's where I have always been so inspired and impressed by you and how you have been spearheading the UX for data. So 1000% that should be UX, and we have not hired that talent. So today, I do expect my product managers to do it, and they do it somewhat because they're just brilliant people, but that doesn't scale, like really. So I'm completely with you. I think there is a big role for UX in product, even bigger role for UX and product management as we move to delivering in the flow of work, because our own stakes are higher, right? It's not a dashboard that potentially nobody was going to go look at. It's truly in the flow of work.
Right.
Between seller and the deal closed and revenue hitting company book. So yeah, 1000%.
Yeah, because if you don't, I mean, you often see with the large product management organizations and big enterprises is they're really doing like requirements gathering, but like what's not happening is not and this, I'm stereotyping or generalizing, but there's not a lot of time spent doing direct customer research. So it's like what it's like to be a consumption seller. You know what their pains are, their incentives, like you talked about the bonus, which I love because it suggests that you understand their personal motivations, but that stuff really matters. And it's really hard to design something well if you don't know what it's like to be that person, which you really can't get through requirements. Requirements are a manifestation of a solution to a problem, but if the problem's not well defined, then it doesn't matter what the solution side looks like. And I'm always curious, how teams are getting problem space clarity such that these AI initiatives, because they can be they're probabilistic in nature, it's like, how do you design something effectively in that scenario unless it's like roll it out, see what happens? But to me, there's that trust cost. It's like, how many trust points do you get to wear down before someone's like, yeah, not going to do it. Like I got burned on that deal. Like I just, like the reputation has been just eroded too many times. Maybe I'm making stuff up that's not true at Salesforce. I don't know, but I don't know.
Oh no, you are hitting it right into the heart. I sometimes look at our adoption dashboards for the AI applications that we're building. And folks typically celebrate both the things that are have high return rate, but also the things that just have high usage and low return rate. And I am very terrified of those things, because if I see a lot of folks coming in and never coming back to an AI app, I see hurt people who have a need, right? So they stopped whatever they were doing and they tried this AI app that you were offering to them, and then they didn't like it to the point where they decided to never come back. And that, to me, is dramatically worse than never releasing that app at all, because it's poisoning the well for any future AI innovation, and potentially just lost your company, just cost your company some money in this folks trying this thing out and getting disappointed. So no, I'm completely with you. I think the most important, most good looking curve of a launched AI application for me is this little step function where you add users in small increments, starting with the ones who are most interested and have highest pain and most willing to roll with potential challenges in there. And then you see them all come back, and then you add more. You see them all come back, you add more, and then maybe eventually you open up to everyone. But 7-day retention on an AI app is one of my highest metrics that I look at across my portfolio.
Oh, interesting. Do you think the lack of having user experience or design as part of this is because it's perceived as, oh, well, it's just going to be deployed in Slack. There's really no UI. So what would we need that for? Or is it really the pain of a low adoption is just not that high? Like if they don't use it, it's no big deal. It's not a big deal. Is it? Do you have a sense of why that is? If the adoption thing matters so much, then why is a group whose skill is around that not utilized as much, I guess, is my question. Is it just not seen as a design domain?
We don't really have UX in the data organization at all. Yeah, so I think it's the existing immaturity that we have never dealt with, because when we created the product organization, we created product roles, and then after a little bit we understood that engineering is also very important. We created engineering roles, and we did a lot of work around that, but there's all these other roles that make a real product in a real life successful that are needed, and UX is number one of them. So I think that's still that we're dealing with. I'm sure a lot of other data teams with, and then that compounds with the changing nature of UX. So exactly what you mentioned. So the interface is different now. It's on the flow of work. So I think that gives people pause, because we don't know how to think of UX in terms of these apps that already have UX. And I think the other thing that our head of UX at Salesforce talks a lot about is this merging role of between UX and then the ontological core of the experience, which I 100% believe in, because I think as you understand what people are asking, you can also start building understanding of the universe of the things they want to know and start structuring that universe. And that structured understanding has real value, like real tangible value for AI, because you can turn it into a knowledge graph and you can make a search better. So I really do think that UX will have even bigger role in this new world, just like with product management will and engineering will, and it's very underappreciated. So you're calling attention to something that's a real problem, and I don't think enough people are talking about it.
Yeah. Did you say at some point when we talked, I don't know, a month or two ago when we were catching up about the podcast, I thought you had said it, you had some stumbles or changes, like when you were trying to bring in like product management as a discipline or applying kind of a product model there. Maybe I misheard that, but is there something there that you wanted to share? I'm sure our audience would be curious if there was some learnings or something that you changed. Oh, we tried this and it didn't work, and here's what we did instead. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I just summarized in spirit. So I think the biggest learning is that we data folk were sold the dream that transitioning to a product model means having some product managers and having them write PRDs and doing Scrum. I like that you laugh. That is about literally what a consulting team told us to do to become a data product management team 2 years ago. And a lot of the goodness came out of that transformation because having product management is necessary. You do have to have product managers. You do have to have them write PRDs, which is not write anything, right? You do have to have Scrum. I do believe in Scrum still. It's not sufficient. What you also need to do is to have the rest of the things that are needed to build a great product. And it's such a common sense thing, because if you look at the great product organizations out there, like startups, they don't just have product managers, right? They have all the other folks that make it amazing. The first role that we realized was missing was engineering manager. And it was quite impressive that I did not think about that myself going through that process, because even if you read any product management book, like Martin Kagan's books, it's always about this pairing of great product management manager and great engineering manager, and how they need to work together, how they have this creative tension, how all of the great things come out of it. But in the standard data organization, engineering managers are actually rare, because there's many reasons for that. I think there's historical reasons in that engineering just has not been as important when you're delivering services, and many data orgs grew up as services. There is also the structural problem of having too many engineering disciplines, because there's data engineers, there is visualization engineers, there is ML engineers, there is sometimes software engineers, and sometimes analytical engineers and big data engineers are different engineers. So how many engineering managers do you really need? Mm-hmm. If you have 5 of them, because you have head of data engineering, head of ML here, and then head of visualization, and the list continues, then PM's job becomes a TPM job, because all you do is you just coordinate your user stories with these 5 different folks. So I think that as PMs think about their ability to build great products, they should ask themselves if they feel supported by having one engineering partner that could truly be a thought partner, having their engineering team operate at the highest standards of excellence, like, for example, having a data developer platform. Many data teams do not have that. They cobble together a stack of development environments of their choice and deployment patterns that they feel like are right, not having any support really from the organization on what is the standard development processes and development lifecycle. There's typically no architects in data teams. And if there are some architects, they're usually modelers. Right. They're not software architects that can think the whole stack through, right? And then help us avoid problems with latency, problems with tech debt moving on, etc. So it really, I grew up in a business ops type of track. So I was a McKinsey consultant straight out of school, then I was in customer success, and then that's how I came to data science eventually. So I actually did not know all these things. I did not know what good engineering looks like. And it took us a while to understand how huge was the piece that we were missing. And I have a feeling that many data organizations are in a similar boat, because if you didn't come from the engineering background, you don't see what you're missing. But it's just so transformative to have a mature engineering org with the leadership at the right level, with the folks who are not just executing, but also acting as great engineers and constantly bringing the technical bar up. So it's really, that has been the transformation that we have been going through after the original PM transformation.
Interesting. Yeah. I tend to think of that for data products. I hesitate to call it like an engineering manager. To me, it's like the product manager needs a technical lead, whatever is appropriate for the project. If it's heavy, Gen AI, then maybe it's a data scientist. If it's more software with a little bit of forecasting, maybe it's an engineer. But the point is to have someone that understands the art of the possible and all the downside risk, especially with the AI stuff, whatever that person looks like. And that can change, but that's what I think of as the sparring partner more. But, you guys are a native software company too, so I'm sure you have a little bit more talent available than some of the legacy, companies do, large enterprises and stuff. So, yeah.
We haven't figured it out. Yeah, but I do think that the reality where PM has to decide what engineering tech lead to go to, it is a difficult reality, because then PM sort of needs to understand the art of the possible a little bit, to decide even, is this a data engineering problem? Is it a ML problem? Is it a software problem? So I wish we find a way out of it. I think we soon will be forced to. I had an anecdote. Our data team now deploys to Salesforce's production agent deployment. So we have this big agent on help.salesforce.com that is awesome and wonderful. And our data team plays a part in developing it. And they're doing a lot of great work. But early on in the process, they did something that resulted in an outage in that agent. For a short time, thankfully, nobody was affected. But that's because we're very smart, very well-intentioned people, but we do not have those software engineering practices that the professional software org has. And unfortunately, those things are going to start being visible very quickly as we start deploying in the flow of work. You don't want to be the slowest person running away from the tiger. You don't want to be the one who always causes the build to break.
Right.
So I think we would need to figure that out.
This has been great, Irina. Thanks so much. Is there any closing thoughts you want to share with the audiences? I'm sure they've gotten a lot out of this already, but I wanted to kind of give you the last word.
Yeah, I think we data folks spend a lot of time being anxious about our craft. I think we should be excited. The thing that gives me a lot of excitement, for example, is Scale AI's recent valuation of close to 30 billion. And what does Scale AI do? They do data things, right? They make your data ready for AI, and they do use data to evaluate AI, and that they just focus on unstructured data and just do their job really, really, really well. I think every data team out there has a potential to be the Scale AI for their organization, and even more valuable possibly, because we truly own the most important asset that AI can ever have, which is data. To train it, to use it, to turn into value. So I really think this is our moment. I think we all need to just slow down, take a deep breath, listen to some really good podcasts out there, get some good advice, and just change the trajectory of where we're going. I'm really excited for the future of data.
Cool, Irina. Thank you so much. Where can people stay in touch with you, follow your work? It's LinkedIn. Where do you hang out?
Yeah, I think just LinkedIn. I'm very bad at external writing, which is something I need to deal with. But so LinkedIn is perfect. Irina Makova.
I love your writing. Your posts are fantastic. So when they come up in my feed, so I think you're really good at it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Brian. Same.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on Experiencing Data. I'll put those links in the show notes.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Experiencing Data with Brian O'Neill. If you did enjoy it, please consider sharing it with the hashtag #ExperiencingData. To get future podcast updates or to subscribe to Brian's mailing list, where he shares his insights on designing valuable enterprise data products and applications, visit designingforanalytics.com/podcast.